Grenada. Show me the show music.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Perspectives. Oh, it's a beautiful Monday morning, and welcome. I'm Brenda Batiste, and we are coming to you live on air on MTV, and of course, we are streaming across the platforms of MTV on Facebook, our Perspectives page, TNR Communications, Partygrenada, and you can find us on Mikey Live and Sister Isle in Carriacou. Good Monday morning. Trust everyone is doing okay. Waking up to a little thunder roll, some showers. If you're heading out, please walk with your umbrellas today. Make sure your mandatory is your mask and your sanitizer, and of course, keeping the distance. It's a great pleasure to be back with you here on this morning. And we say good morning to our expert talk panel of Senator Christopher Ali, who's joining us via Zoom this morning, and Mr. Byron Campbell. Good morning, gentlemen.
Where's Chris?
Morning,
Chris is on.
Yeah. Good morning to you, Byron, and to the rest of the team. Yes, I'm on Zoom this morning, and I'm happy to be here to the listeners and our viewers. It's good to be back. Again, doing another program. Yes, we're having some showers, but Brenda, I think the big discussion is going to be what is happening in Grenada with COVID. Unfortunately, you know, we had predicted that these things may come because we were on the precipice. Grenada was in a bubble. Just so happened that the bubble have now shattered, and we're seeing a spike in cases. We had to pray and hope that it doesn't get to the point where we're seeing a number of deaths as well. So I think we have a lot to chat about this morning. Byron?
Hey, Chris, I miss your physical presence, man. You know. Morning, all. Morning, Brenda.
Morning.
Listeners,
Good morning.
viewers, wherever you are. As Chris rightly said, beautiful day, rainy day. Good day for planting. Any day is good for planting, actually. When it rains like that, I keep in mind, you know, where our food import bill is. You know, it is still pretty high. $400 million is a lot of money. We need really to focus on consuming more of what we produce. You know, we have to move in that direction. There's no other way. And I think it's not just Grenada, it's the region, you know, like $5 billion food import bill for the region. So individually, though, we have to contribute more and do a little more of what when we go to the supermarket or to the market, try buying local. Yes, sometimes it might be a little more expensive, maybe sometimes, but buy what's in season. You find usually what's in season is usually a bit cheaper. But anyway, I agree. Today is not my comfort zone at all. I feel I'm not relaxed. I'm very tense this morning. I'm trying to. But you know, and we're going to talk about this, Brenda. I know you're going to introduce it, but I'm concerned about fake news.
I think,
the damage and the potential.
I think what it behooves people like us to help the nation to relax. This morning, people are waking up.
Yeah.
They are tuning into programs like this.
Yeah.
To get whatever the perspective is on whatever.
Yeah.
Because we had a weekend, we had a Friday night, we had a Saturday night, we had a Sunday night, and we had some days where a lot of milieu and things were swirling around without any official anything except for the dashboard that we have 10 additional COVID cases.
Yeah.
At this point, there's no other official information regarding any additional cases that we have. Of course, we're well aware that with COVID is primary and secondary contacts. So every time you find someone who's COVID positive, you start multiplying. Where did you go? Who did you interact with? So we know those numbers are adding up in terms of contact tracing, and that is what we are, as Senator Ali said, with the bubble bus. And so when you're bubble bus, what do? You try to contain the spill. And I think that is what the officials are doing now. And we can assist them by containing the spill. Observe the protocols. You don't move if you don't need to. Somebody tell me Saturday, right now they like a center table in their house. They're not moving, right? And if you have to move, because guys, we have to live with COVID. We have to. So if you have to move, please, your mask, your distance, all of the things. One constant in this whole thing, with COVID, the protocols have never, ever change. That is the one consistent pattern of behavior and approach that has never changed. Wear your mask, physical distance, sanitize. Never changed. Senator Diali?
Yeah, I would just say that, it is a bit disappointing when you're still hearing people saying that, this is all a hoax and the government is doing all of this to keep people at bay and not to do certain things. That is still disappointing when you hear ordinary folk still expose those kind of opinions. For us, I believe the fact that the ministry have said that we have the very dangerous Delta variant here with us is cause for concern in one aspect of it. The fact that we have seen in the last 10 to 12 days, we moved from 1 case to 30 plus cases. And the expectation is that that is also going to increase as we move forward because of the amount of contact tracing that have been being looked at and so on. And we know our public health system will be challenged if we get a run on the public health system. So, we're in a precarious place. Here, we're not here to frighten people, but we need to bring the reality to the general public that this is not something to joke with. And Brenda, as you said quite rightly, we all need to exercise and maintain the protocols. The protocols have worked, it continues to work, but we need to get back because in Grenada we just seem to have a very lax going about saying that everything is good here. We don't have no COVID. Everything everybody happy and go lucky. And I think one person said yesterday 2% of the population or less probably is infected, or probably less than 2% in our case. So what is the big outcry about? I don't think the people in the government is seen in the same way, or as the curfew wouldn't have moved to 9 to 5 as it has, because they are concerned about what is happening and how it's going to evolve in the next few days, next few weeks.
One of the big issue here that I'd like to address relating from our present situation is its effects on hospital services. Let me tell you why. Let me give you a specific example. Particularly what a hospital has had to do, and I got this from an elderly person who had to do elective surgery, quite advanced cataract operation procedure, and this has been now postponed indefinitely. And they could hardly see. They have a lot of difficulty seeing. And so this operation, which was scheduled for this week, has now been postponed without a date. What I'm saying is that other regular routine hospital services are going to impact everyone.
Yes, it will.
And that's a big implications for everybody. So stuff that elective surgeries, procedures that persons need to undertake are now off the table entirely. So it's important, therefore, that when we think of COVID, we have to think about hospital service and our limitation in the very general sense. And I'm concerned about that. And we could talk about the vaccine, and we could talk about these fake recordings that are intended to create panic, to create anarchy, to create adverse effects within the population.
Yeah. Well, about the recording, we should have the Perverted Voice. The Perverted Voice should join us at some time during the program. He come in via Zoom, so we'll wait to hear from Superintendent Vanny Cohen, who we now know. I never believed it, just because of the man I know in his duty and the experiences I've had with him in his professional line of work, and just my general observation of how he operates. So I never believed that to be him at all, but I tell you what, it has created immense panic. Immense panic. It has done tremendous damage. And when you listen to the recording, so I'm a person who likes to internalize. So I'll read a book 7 times. And every time I read, I find something new or different. Or I get a new perspective on what I thought before. So I went back and I've now listened to that audio 10 times. The real message in the audio from my little Colombo, my little amateur Colombo, the real message in the audio comes in the latter part of the audio, where the speaker says, and even the government panicking and the government don't know what to do. that was the message they wanted to convey. This comes on the heels of the Prime Minister leaving the country to take care of some personal affairs, get some rest for 2 weeks, right? That comes on the heels of that. Nobody, that area here feels it, that was strategically done and maliciously planned.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Maliciously. I conclude that this is criminal. It had the effects. It was designed to create political and other type of instability, and this started happening, you know. And I'm hopeful that this matter is pursued and that the culprit is brought to answer for what has occurred. This is dangerous.
We are in the danger zone. We are in the
Absolutely.
danger zone, and we are up against things that we never imagined. So everyone have to get smarter, and everyone have to be able to step out to counter a lot of what is going to be happening.
But the key thing here is too that when we receive anything you receive, our individual responsibility is to verify, check. But I must admit, this was cleverly done. This was professionally done. It's a good job. But clearly,
it can be professionally dissected as well.
Exactly. So I'm saying that they accomplished whatever they wanted to do. But I'm saying, for me, in my mind,
you don't mess with things like audio.
It's criminal.
Yeah, you know, I would just add that I think, you know, after listening to Prime Minister Mia Mottley, I don't know why we want to use COVID to subdivide and divide our nation. Something like that. And that audio obviously had political overtones and obviously trying to get people to panic and divide us along the lines of a deadly disease. And I'm not understanding why we would want to do that at this time when we try to unify our people to come around and to coalesce around one central theme, which is, you know, try and protect yourself and your family and be careful so as to not get this disease, because this disease not only affects you immediately. If you get over it, it has long-term effects as well. So, I mean, at the end of the day, and as Byron rightfully pointed out, it puts pressure on the health system where elective surgeries and other things that we need to take care of our people would not be possible if we get a run. And it appears that we would. So, I mean, this is not the time for this kind of behavior, and it's so disappointing. But again, our society is made up of all types, and we use situations to exploit situations to do what we want and achieve what we want. So I am happy that Superintendent Vanny Curran is going to come in, and the police have already issued statements saying that, you know, this is not the behavior, and hopefully, you know, that will deal with some of it.
I really hope people have, it is really sent, I mean, shockwaves. My phone was blowing up. Some messages I have not even responded to. People were just, you know, in my own home, my mother was really nervous. It's just not a good, we need to be very careful. There's also some circulations on Facebook and people speaking very matter-of-factly about outbreak and so on at the university in the South. We know the university is, right? We have to bear this in mind. The students are coming back. They are going back to campus. They're being tested there. They have to be quarantined in their room. So if a block is cordoned off where students are, nobody told you they had COVID. Why are we perpetuating this? That is where we have stored the Pfizer. That is where the MOH sent some of the tests for verification. SGU is busy with work for us and on our behalf. So why are we just going ad nauseum with these things? And then some of these people who work in these institutions without knowing things are just, they're seeing things happening and they're just sending out little WhatsApp, sending out voice notes. It's a whole pile of hysteria. Hysteria plus the virus. So there's so many things, so many moving parts. If we could all just try to pause. It is a frightening time. Just pause.
To add insult to injury, Brenda, SGU is a critical cog in our economic cycle in Grenada. It employs a number of people, indirectly and directly, hundreds and probably thousands of people feel the effects when SGU is back to full force and students are here. It swells our population and, you know, economic activity occurs. So why would you want to do things like that to jeopardize people's livelihood when, we're at a point when none of us, this country or any other country in the region, could afford another lockdown?
Correct.
Because of COVID. This is a time when we need to consolidate and work together and ensure that on the economic side, on the livelihood side, we protect businesses. I mean, look at the government. The government position since this outbreak is not to shut us down, it's to say, listen, let us extend the curfew, limit the amount of people who are in confined spaces, who want to have fetes and parties and so on, continue to follow the protocols and so on, not to lock down the country, because we understand economically we cannot go back through that kind of cycle. Yeah. So it is important for us as a people to really rally around that. I don't know why we would want to disrupt, because when people are out of jobs and they can't get things to buy for their own families and so on, basic needs and so on, we are all in trouble. So I don't know what this is about in trying to destroy some of the things that we have already started to see and bring us back to some level of normalcy. We all know we have to live with COVID. It's just how we do it, whether vaccinated or unvaccinated.
Gentlemen, why do you, what do you think, and this is for both you, Senator Ali and Mr. Campbell, there seems to be this perversion, this pervading thing that every time a statement comes out from the government, the Ministry of Health specifically, about the COVID cases, there is this general mistrust of the information. And let's just bring it home now to our, let's just not talk outside. Let's just talk inside. What are the factors you believe is impacting this general mistrust of information about our health situation with COVID?
Brenda, if I was going to react first to this. First of all, I mean, this is a public health issue. There's a global emergency. Along with this, we have social media, and the social media, and we have the politics that also goes with it. What we've seen here is as the government, as governments and everywhere, because you see what's happening in other territories and Vincent and other countries, as the government pursue its COVID strategy, which is unfolding on a daily basis. What we're seeing is that the politics of it is playing out. Persons are using the COVID scenario in a political dimension to criticize government or to react to governments or to and part of the population is going along. In other words, it's becoming a partisan issue, which is very unfortunate. And I think this is a dimension of it that we see and played out. So when the government speaks, in other words, everybody should get on board, because this is public health messages. This is messages for the public at large. It's not partisan, but we see it's being dissected and political play is taking a place. So it's important for population to be wary of this, to listen, to take on board. And there's always hotlines. There are a number of hotlines available. If you have doubts, if you have questions, you can follow through, you can fact check. But instead, what I'm seeing here is political reactions on a partisan level. Okay.
Senator Ali?
I will only add, Byron, on top of what you have said, that there is this issue of the mistrust of information. Let's take Minister Steele out there, because a lot of people believe he's a politician. You'll hear comments about he's arrogant and how he has spoken. But I can understand Minister Steele's exasperation in handling this COVID crisis, and I've been begging and asking people to follow a certain protocol, and we are not, because we believe in Grenada we have no COVID. How we go on beaches and Lime, how we congregate without masks, some of those super spreader events that we saw. I mean, there's a clear indication that people believe that what is the fuss about, all this information. But let's take it a step down. Even though a CMO or acting CMO comes on, he's a technical person, he's a scientist, he's a doctor, he's the one that comes and says, listen, this is the situation, and even he gets criticized. So if you remove Steele from the politics and you just take it to the CMO, even our technical people, and that is probably fueled because we have certain nurses and doctors in our system who continue to say to people that, listen, do not take this vaccine, this is not the right thing to do.
Correct.
And so people at that level as well is perpetrating this thing. So the mistrust of information in Grenada seems to be significant, because we have the so-called doctors and nurses who are telling people, this is not the right thing to do, don't do this, take care, watch what is going on. And then you have the Ministry of Health coming and saying, no, this is what, so there is a conflict there all the time. And I know the political dimension is there because some people need to exploit it for whatever reasons, but even at the step down stage with technical people giving information, people still believe that, the information is false. And all we try to do is scare people and get them to operate in a certain way. Look at the whole issue around August when they had all the carnival-like activities and people and what they were saying. It's all about the message. The message was about don't bother with this, the people in authority. This is a hoax. Continue to play and do and jab forever and all of this kind of nonsense. So at the end of the day, it is a conflict we have inside because some of us are not speaking from the same page, and it's really causing, a difficulty in the dissemination of the information, I believe.
Yeah, and I'm sure you would agree that the fact that we have not had any sort of massive impact. I mean, now
That's
it's probably our most precarious time because prior to we have not had.
Yeah. So where are we going now? I'm to understand we now have two children. Cases. I understand. I don't know. Sure that we have 2 persons hospitalized, 1 or 2 persons hospitalized.
I think we had 3 hospitalized. 2 have been discharged.
Okay, so there's 1. Yeah. Excellent. But it just shows. I mean, as Chris pointed earlier on. I mean, we are now in an extended curfew environment. I'm to understand that there is a mass. There's a huge amount of contact tracing being done.
Yes.
I know that the Royal Grenada Police Force had a release that one of their a person, an Imani that's working at one of the stations, tested positive. Yeah. So all this contact tracing and the effects it would have on the operation on the officers there. Yeah. We're not in a good place. I mean, that's the point that we have to understand. And so the emphasis on emphasis on vaccination, because we have to look at the economic aspect, the livelihood aspect, and whereas some countries may be able to afford to lock down, this is very hard on us, and already even with the extended curfew, Chris, the economic impact on that, because some businesses that cater like restaurants and others, facilities, workers are going to be affected here already. So the economic implications for many is already being felt. And we don't know what the future, the possibilities are, where it's going to go. So we have an individual and collective responsibility. The other point I want to make is a question of vaccination and whether in what sector, etc., they should be mandatory. Now here we have a situation with schools and children 12 and over. I mean, that debate, that discussion should happen, whether children 12 and over vaccination should be mandatory for attending school. And teachers and frontline workers, what is the collective responsibility here? And I know, Chris, your position on that, but it's an important debate that we should have. And no one is saying that you have to or you don't have to, but if you don't, there are consequences.
Yeah, and Byron, let me tell you, from my perspective, we have community spread. We have community spread. Once we have community spread, to get this virus under control is going to be 5 times more difficult, very much more difficult to get it under control once you have community spread. And my take on the mandatory, I put it squarely on the shoulders of the government, who have not insisted that our frontline workers like police officers, customs, immigration, prisons, and so on, need to be vaccinated, and that should have been mandated. Yeah. I am now going to extend that to teachers and our students, because we have Pfizer. Pfizer is now can be used for the age group 12 to 18, as you indicated, and I believe that is things that we don't need to play with. Our children, this Delta variant is attacking our children who we once thought had, a certain amount of immunity to this thing, and it is leaving them not only with they may recover, but they're leaving them with all kind of long-term aspects, who are have respiratory issues, having other issues that the parents will have to contend with, probably for the rest of the life of their children. Yeah. And when Grenada, you could extrapolate and say, listen, if parents and adults are so hesitant to take the vaccine, it is going to filter down to the children. They would not say to the children, listen, if I ain't taking it, you should take it. So I think we have a challenge on our hands. And I know government is hesitant to make things mandatory, and a lot of the prime ministers in the region are hesitant. But I believe when it comes to the protection of our children and certain aspects of our society, there needs to be a more firm decision.
We're not hearing Senator Dialli. Right. Just to pick up on what Senator Dialli, we lost you for a minute. Hope you can come back in soon. Just to pick up on that, I think we're at a critical juncture now where we have to test the temperature of things, how people are feeling, and how people are reacting to this. Senator Dialli said, protection and mandatory. I am not sure that mandatory and protection work hand in hand. I think to get the level of protection you want, there needs to be agreement. There needs to be agreement.
So there's dialogue.
So our work becomes harder, in my view, because basically you cannot browbeat anybody to protect themselves. What you can do is implore. And so when we start mandating, we start dividing, right? Even if it's for
public good.
Correct. Even if it's for the public good. So even with all of that on the table is what are the unique set of circumstances? What are the unique set of measures? Where is this suite of measures that will keep us safe, right? And we're at the juncture where the science is now, new things are emerging. Because it's not lies, it's that science is a continuum. You find this out last week, you put it in where, let's say in a petri dish or whatever, you go back and you find new things. So there are new discoveries taking place, and we have to be open to that. One of the things that has emerged is that vaccinated people can pass on the virus, they can be impacted by it. We have a brilliant case here in Grenada, a young man by the name of Dwan the Entertainer. He was in New York for some time. He got vaccinated with Pfizer. He returned home. He contracted COVID here. He did a Facebook Live because he said he's an entertainer. That's what he does for a living. He went all over Grenada. He was in contact with all sorts of people, and he's asking them to go out and test themselves. Dwan, very well done. Hats off to you for doing that live, and be safe. Dwan is on this live, he's laughing, he's happy, he's fine, he's not feeling any symptoms. I've spoken to somebody else who I know is COVID positive. They're telling me they're fine, they're drinking rum, they're vaccinated, right? So we have that to contend with because people are making this big argument that, hey, y'all say the vaccination will save the world. Okay, no, it's not. What it is a difference in whether you wear your seatbelt or not. If you're in the accident, whether you go through the glass of your windshield or whether your head bump and you come back like this. So that's what it is. So it's the border controls, what we're doing there. It's the protocols. We have to do that. The Prime Minister can't come and put on my mask. I have to wake up every day and put my mask on. I have to sanitize, I have to distance, I have to do that. I have to make sure my immune system is built. I have to maintain my distance. If they say 20 people at the funeral and I get to the funeral and I see the church chock-a-block, I need to turn and go back. All these things need to happen to me in tandem.
Brenda, what I want to add to what you've said is that, again, I keep repeating that this is a public health issue. And I think what is important is dialogue. So not just the mandatory or what are the consequences, but I think we need dialogue with the community. We need to listen, we need to interface, we need to be on the ground and hear people. That's an important dimension of it. How you deal with that at the community level, and also how you deal with frontline persons, professionals persons who are expected to informal institutions. I think both approaches are necessary. Dialogue.
Yeah, consultation. Consultation, because it has to be.
I agree.
To me, we just hitting these snags, and it's becoming so hard. And now you have people brazenly saying, well, like people who are unvaccinated, now they say, hey, see, hey, see, y'all giving us the. Listen, guys. Yeah. If you're unvaccinated, it really is. It is a challenge. It is a struggle because in the Prime Minister's address on Friday night, he said there was feedback from the MOH of that in a family or in a household or in a group of 4 people, right? Or 5. 4 people got it. And the one who was vaccinated is all right. Okay, so, you have the science is telling you all these things. So let us not have the fight of the vaccinated and the unvaccinated. And the measures that are put in place is to protect everybody. But people with the hesitancy, I think we need to consult with them. People with the reluctance, that's a whole other matter. And so it behooves the rest of us who want to move on with life, who want us to go back to get vaccinated so we could really attain herd immunity. It is a tough one. It is the greatest fight of our lives. It didn't look like if COVID going anywhere soon. We are tired with it. It's not tired with us. It's mutating. It is alpha. It is gamma. It is delta. It is delta plus. It's just omega. It is going on and on and on, guys. So we just have to. Senator Diali, welcome back.
Yes, I was going to say that I totally agree with Byron that we have to continue the talking and the communication and, to find out what is happening. But I also want to say, I think when we had, was it Dr. Oles from SGU that said to us that we also in this continuum where we're fighting a battle against time, because this virus will mutate as more and more people who are unvaccinated and get sick. And this is why we have the various variants that we have now. And Delta, I mean, if you want to dispute a lot of things, I think 2 things that are undisputable right now on the science is that we have a variant called Delta that is more contagious and more virulent.
Absolutely.
We also have another issue that the unvaccinated are the ones getting seriously ill and dying versus the vaccinated. That is a scientific fact now that we have. You could say all you want about all the different theories of the science and all the conspiracies and so on, but those 2 issues I think are undisputable.
Absolutely.
That you could, no matter what news feed you put on, those are the 2 things that you will hear being said at all times. We do have a Delta variant, and we pray that we don't get a super variant down the road as less and less people make the decision to get vaccinated. Because I think Dr. Oles said it, he said, listen guys, the more we wait and the more this thing gets into people and does its multiplication, the chances of it changing and mutating is just the natural way these things operate. So now we're paying for that, and it is just sad that we have to keep these debates. And I always say, how long do we keep talking and debating the issues when we have this thing that is around us that is deadly? It is not a flu virus. It's not something you get and you recover and you get some antibiotics and you get some medicines and you're good. This thing can potentially snap lives and take away. And you hear the sad stories. We had one over CNN where a mother and father died within a week of each other, left 2 kids behind, teenagers. That is the kind of sad stories we have, and we really don't want that to happen here, but, it is what it is, and unfortunately, I think we're heading down that road to some degree.
Yeah, once you're dealing with us human beings, it becomes dynamic, and so the approaches have to be multi-pronged. But Senator Diali, Mr. Campbell, and to the viewing and listening public, our Minister of Health, the Honorable Nicholas Steele, has joined us via Zoom. And we hear what he has to say to the nation this morning. We take a quick break and we'll come back. When we come back, we start our conversation with the Minister of Health, the Honorable Nicholas Steele.
Get vax. It's your best shot. Hello.
A message from the Ministry of Health.
You're gonna wear your mask today. You see everywhere you go. There are rules you got to follow, so don't you say COVID-19 will delay. Take the opportunity to save your community. Don't be that guy, put a mask on your face if you're heading outside. It's your life, my life, more lives we'll be taking if we don't try. If you feel any symptoms, call the hotline. Stay inside until you feel fine. 6 feet away every day. Keep COVID-19 far from away. Keep Grenada safe. Be COVID-19 smart.
Welcome back to Perspectives. If you're just joining us for the program, we welcome you to this morning's broadcast. And we would like to welcome to Perspectives this morning our Minister of Health, the Honorable Nicholas Steele. He's on Zoom with us, and we have his audio. Good morning, Minister.
Good morning, Brenda. Good morning, Byron, Chris,
Morning.
all of your viewers
Morning,
and listeners.
morning.
Morning, sir.
Morning.
Well, I trust you had a good weekend. The nation had one that seems to be on sort of pins and needles. So, Minister, this morning your task is to bring us up to date on the state of play as it relates to the COVID-19 situation in Grenada.
Yeah, well, let me give you a status update. We start today, and I'm stressing on starting today because the situation is fluid, and we do expect it to change as the day proceeds. But we start today with 39 positive cases, and one of those positives being in hospital. The majority of those cases are local cases from approximately 3 what we would define as clusters or significant areas, being St. John's, Victoria, and our northeast, northwest St. George's. And we are now seeing a couple cases showing up in St. Andrews as well. So we are seeing a widespread across the island. We do expect, regrettably, that these numbers will increase significantly for the next week. The actions that we have taken with respect to curfew adjustments and movement, we do not expect to see the significant results of those, at least for another week. That's just the nature of this disease,
Right.
and in particular, this variant. It takes 1 week to 2 weeks for you to see the actions or the results, of your actions from today or moving from today forward. So what we are seeing today are the results of our actions 1 or 2 weeks ago.
Right. There's a question being asked as this has happened, and I'm sure you are cabinet this morning and all of that. And is any consideration being given to looking at the quarantine period for visitors entering Grenada, Minister?
Yeah, Brenda, I'm glad you brought that up. I see a lot of people asking those questions, or a lot of newfound pundits. Let me say that this variant is very different, first and foremost. Let me say that the Ministry of Health and I myself have consistently said that there is no border control system, regardless of the length of time of quarantine, that is foolproof, that we must all act inside under the assumption that somebody will sneak in, sneak by, or sneak through. That some persons are calling for 4 days instead of 2, or 5 days instead of the 48 hours. New Zealand has 14 days and they're under community spread. Hong Kong has 21 days quarantine for everybody coming in, and they're still under community spread. It matters not the length of time, because as you stretch quarantine out, when we had longer quarantine periods in the past up until this new outbreak, 3 times in the past, Grenadians were infected. 2 of those 3 times were from individuals who breached the quarantine. And 1 was with our establishment, hotel establishment, Sandals, in December. So it is not the length of quarantine, it is the personal responsibility. If these individuals did not have large parties to attend, we would be back to 2 or 3 people infected that they would have interacted with. We are dealing with community spread, the likelihood, the obvious inevitability of community spread now because of large gatherings. Persons could have snuck in. Persons could have breached the quarantine regardless of its length. But the entire country wouldn't be where it is right now if it was under normal, non-carnival-like activities going on. Right. And I think we need to admit and accept that.
Right, right. And the highlight of the activities and or physical geographical locations of the spaces where the infected is coming from, Minister, that is being put out there so we are aware, because we seem to be at this point we seem to be in a state where there's a lot of finger pointing. And one of my greatest takeaways from the Prime Minister's address on Friday night was him saying, we are at this place. Now let's move forward. What would you like to say in response to that?
Yeah, I think it is. I take a similar position. It is not about the quarantine period. It is what it is. We as a people, the proud culture and history that we have, this is where we are. We have to recognize that we are a democracy. 20% of our population have been vaccinated. 80% have not.
Yeah.
We have a significant majority of our population who are non-compliant. But those are the facts. Those aren't the emotions of this. And it's not, as you say, I agree with you, it's not the blame game part of it. They are the facts. And we must deal with that. And if we've only way to deal with that properly and get control of this situation is to admit and agree that those are the facts.
Right.
And to move forward, we've got to change those realities, which are the number of people who are vaccinated and the number of people who are willing to be compliant.
Minister Steele, here's a situation, as you rightly have described it, that you have a likely community spread situation. The government reaction or action to this has been an extended curfew and some limitation in movement, whereas we see some countries with much less level of infection have moved to more strident, more longer, either extended curfew, but also lockdown as we speak. What conditions are you looking for to escalate that would require the escalation of the present state of affairs in terms of curfew or further lockdown restriction, which we know that most countries utilize from time to time as a measure of curtailing the spread of the virus, sir?
Yeah, Byron, I think it is more a case of governments being able to have a pulse or feel the pulse of what's going on in their own nations. Because some countries are taking stricter action, as you said, because some countries have a much higher level of infection or community spread. And then there is also a trigger when you are approaching, or if the initial actions have not prevented your health system from being inundated. And in some instances, it is inevitable, but it takes 2 weeks, and you do it in a series of 2-week actions. So you begin to slow these 2 weeks, and then you try to stop the following next 2 weeks. So it varies, and you're also seeing, and I think you need we need to recognize that we're also seeing some populations rejecting, objecting, and demonstrating against the very actions to keep them safe, which negates the whole purpose of trying to ask people to minimize movement, because this Delta variant loves movement. It loves gatherings, and it loves movement. And it doesn't care whether those gatherings or movement of people are in celebration of a culture or in demonstration against a government.
What can we anticipate as far as continued health services, sir, as a result of this heightened emergency situation?
We will be going. We have made those announcements, but we will be repeating and making it official throughout the day moving forward, that we're moving to only emergency surgeries and procedures at the hospital, that only one person can accompany a patient, whether the patient is going to attend casualty or whether the person is admitted in the hospital and needs to be visited or taken care of, or so. Only one person can come in to minimize the number of people. As I said, this Delta loves movement and gathering of people. So we need to minimize that. As to whether our health system will be inundated, it depends on how unlucky we have been in the last 2 weeks and how much we adhere to the measures over the next 2 weeks. It is we as a people, not the Ministry of Health, that can prevent the health system being inundated. In the same way, in every single country, it depends on what the majority of the people or the people as a whole do. And that prevents your health system from being inundated or not, regardless of how strong or weak, large or small your health system is.
Right.
My question, Minister, sorry. Yes, my question to the Minister is if you could tell us what the positivity rate in Grenada is at the moment, because I know that is an indicator that a lot of countries use to significantly change protocols, whether it's extended curfews or lockdown to a certain percentage, as we saw in Jamaica recently. So if you could give us an indication if you know what our positivity rate in Grenada is at this moment.
I will have that later today, Chris. I agree, it is extremely important, but we did a significant number of tests over the weekend.
Right.
And it's based on those. What I am looking at and reporting is the number of positives. But yes, we do need to compare that with. But also what is skewing that is over the weekend, and I would expect into this week, a significant number of people are coming forward who would not be seen from the Ministry of Health as possibly at-risk persons that would add to that positivity rate calculation. But we want them to come forward still anyway, because so many of the events and activities and so are not on record.
Right.
And therefore we have no record of persons.
Right.
So that affects this situation, where if we
Ministers,
had the records, we could say 500 people attended this or 200 people attended this, and we have the list of the 200, and we're going to test all 200 of them and see how many of them are positive.
Minister
We're not in that position.
That's a very interesting dynamic you just pointed out there, and that sounds like a serious threat. Could you confirm whether that is a challenge for you, as a lot of these gatherings have been places where people have not written down their names and numbers, and if somebody know me as Bupsi in an area, and I put my right name as Brenda, Batista, whatever, that it might be very, very difficult to find me. And are you running into any challenges as well, where that people who have hosted these events, people are telling them, "Watch, don't say I was here, don't." Are we finding these things?
Most definitely. And it's going even further. We have brothers calling on sisters, or sisters calling on brothers, or girlfriends calling on boyfriends, etc., to say, I believe my brother or my sister or my boyfriend or my girlfriend was at that. And what do? Do I make her come in to get tested, or make him come in to get tested? Or so, in other words, we have certain responsible individuals out there, while we have a lot of other individuals who are recognizing that they may be at risk, but holding strain and hoping that nothing develops, no symptoms, or they don't feel anything or so, and that they would have dodged the bullet. So yeah, we are not able to, and which is why we begged, we pleaded with the population not to have these type of activities, because these type of activities ran the risk of putting us exactly where we are now.
Right. Minister Steele, I'm going to call on the father in you, not the minister, the father, the father of children. There might be a group of young people out there this morning not feeling themselves. They might be concerned that they were somehow exposed in some group or the other, and might have come into contact with people that are currently COVID positive. But the overriding thing for them is that they may have jumped in a band. They may have had some sort of activity that we admonish they shouldn't have. What would you tell those young people this morning?
I think persons need to monitor their situation. Persons need to communicate. So in other words, individuals in your household, if you did quietly sneak out, or while you were out, attend an activity that you think is a risky activity, I think you need to share it with. You need to own your situation. It's human nature. Own your situation. Tell your loved ones in the house, look, I was here, I went there or so. So they know themselves as well, so that they can start to monitor themselves as well for any possible symptoms or so. So they get the option to go get tested if they believe it is necessary or so. But if we keep it quiet and we try a cover up, we're not going to be able to ascertain the level of risk per household or per community. So people need to come forward and say to each other, admit, agree, and communicate. And therefore, from there, that's how household by household, family by family, we will be able to deal with this situation. The last thing we want is for one of us within our own household to be quiet and try to cover up. And it's only when Granny shows up positive that we start asking questions as to, well, how could this possibly have happened? Because Granny has never left the house. So we need to be each other's keeper. And at this point, like I said, whatever is happening now is from actions 2 weeks ago. You can't hide it. You can't change it. It is what it is. The only thing we can do to mitigate is to be honest and communicate.
Correct.
Minister, I think we need to compliment your ministry. I think I saw they posted some information about different places you can call to get tested if you have a concern as an individual or you're exhibiting symptoms, so that you could know your status in terms of positive or not. I think that is something that I saw recently that I must compliment. It gives people the options to listen, as you say, from a household to check and see what exactly is happening. The question I want to also forward to you is that I know we say that, and you have said that this is a constantly evolving situation. This curfew, extended curfew from 9 to 5 is until the 3rd of September. As this situation deteriorates before it gets better, are we going to see an extension of this and not necessarily lockdown, because I don't think the country could afford that, and from a private sector point of view, we don't want to go there. But is there a consideration that the curfew could be extended, and that the police is going to do their duty as they have been doing to significantly enforce it? Because you're still hearing about people having gatherings and fetes in certain places, and people are questioning if that is going to be more significantly enforced by the police as we go forward. in order to stymify the situation?
Yeah, Chris, it depends on the level of compliance, starting from last Friday with the announcement of these new rules. It depends on a certain.
Minister,
We lost him.
did we lose Minister Steele? Seems like we did.
Seem to have lost his audio. He's still
Yeah.
there, but we seem to have lost his audio.
He's still there. Okay.
Okay.
It's at a critical juncture.
Brenda,
Yeah.
let me just say this while he's coming on. I saw an article.
He's back.
He's back. Okay.
Go ahead, Minister. We lost you for a couple minutes.
Yes, sorry. Yes, it's the second week that we will determine based on the actions of the people, now the compliance of the people since Friday, and the unluckiness and the grace of God as to whether the continued sporadic non-compliant events become super spreaders or just continue to be possible super spreaders.
Right.
It only takes one person to attend any of these illegal activities that have still continued over the weekend to turn them into a super spreader as opposed to simply an illegal activity.
Right. Minister, before we let you go, what in terms of your you're confirming to us this morning, or can you confirm to us this morning that we are at the stage of community spread of COVID-19 in Grenada?
I think it's going to take us a day or two before we make that public announcement.
Okay.
But Brenda, it's obvious to you and to me and to most of us out there that we are.
Right. Here's another one for you, sir. In terms of how COVID works with the person who gets impacted, the primary contact, the secondary contact, your contact tracing. At this moment, can you tell us what your contact tracing numbers are looking like?
Oh, we're way up there, Brenda. Let me take a look and see. As of this
have we
morning,
gone past 1,000?
I'd say so. Yes.
Wow.
Contact. Yeah.
Okay.
We're very quickly approaching that. But with respect to those direct contacts of a positive case, no.
Okay.
But you see, those positive cases were at mass events.
Right.
Yeah.
So the fight now is containment.
Yes.
And how going
The fight
into,
now is containment.
and going into this week, this is a critical week for us, you would say. So what would you want?
Yes.
What would you want to leave with the nation this morning, Minister?
I think we need to recognize the virus spreads movement and gathering. Movement and gathering. That's what we want to minimize. If we do have to move about with mask, being compliant. We do have to gather, make sure we minimize the size of those gatherings. Those are the actions that we must take. We all have to be wherever possible at work. We have to get on buses. We have to move about the nation. Life must go on.
Yeah.
But we can make sure that in doing that, we take the necessary precautions for ourselves, our neighbors, and our dependents. And in doing so, we can get on top of the situation.
Thank you so much, Minister Steele. Really appreciate the time this morning. Thank you for sharing very pertinent information that the nation needs. We thank you for continuing to serve us in the capacity as our health minister, and our best wishes to your team at the ministry, and the extended medical team, and all the other agencies who work in tandem with the Ministry of Health as we continue this public health battle, so to speak.
Thanks, Brenda. All the best to you, to Chris, to Byron. You all stay safe, all of your team working behind the scenes too. Stay safe and hope to see you again soon.
Thank you.
And to you and your family. Thank you very, very much.
Thanks, Minister. Have a good one.
Thank you.
Take care.
Good day, sir.
We have been speaking with the Honorable Nicholas Steele, our Minister of Health. And we take a quick break. When we come back, the man of the moment, the voice of the moment is here. But was it his voice? We speak to Superintendent Vanny Cohen when we return.
Get vaxxed. It's your best shot. Hello.
A message from the Ministry of Health.
Tourism connects us all.
Welcome back to Perspectives. It's quite a busy morning, but we have to bring you the perspectives. We have to start your day right. That's what we do here. And it's a pleasure to introduce our next guest panelist. He is Superintendent Vanny Cohen. And Superintendent Cohen, he takes care of the communications arm of the RGPF. He's also one of their long-standing and most tactical and operationally savvy officers. Good morning, Superintendent Cohen.
Thank you very much, Brenda. That introduction is I'm elated hearing you introduce me that way. I don't know if I accept those accolades, but yes, I do my best and in whatever I put my mind to do.
I want you to smile and I want you to feel warm because I know you have a lot of incoming at the moment. And I also want you to know that those things are true about you.
Thank you very much, and I do appreciate it. And morning to the rest of you.
Morning.
Wonderful.
Morning, Superintendent.
So, Superintendent, there is a narrator, a speaker, an audio that was released on the public last evening, and it's purported to be your voice with a very, what I call a distress call, so to speak, and it has really sent the whole nation into a tailspin. We'd just like you to address that for us this morning.
Well, obviously, that call, as you indicated, is one that is geared towards panic. You said that, and that is actually true. Let me give you the whole unfolding of that and how I become aware of this. About 4 o'clock yesterday evening, I went fishing, because that's what I do in my pastime. One of the things that I do in my pastime. And I went fishing. I got a call from one of my neighbors asking about the authenticity of that particular voicemail. And I inquired, what voicemail are you referring to? While I was on the phone with her, Commissioner called me and was inquiring of the same voicemail. And I said, well, I am just discussing this with somebody, so give me a few minutes, let me get the facts behind it, what has happened, and then I'll get back to you. And I actually got back to him. But let me address some of the contents of the voicemail and the accuracy of some of the information in that voicemail. And Brenda, only yesterday, it was confirmed that we have our first case of COVID in the RGPF, only yesterday. We put out an official release from the RGPF, which is what we do. And it's only yesterday I become privy to that information. So to suggest that we have widespread COVID in the RGPF will be inaccurate and be irresponsible of me to say that when I know that's not the case. So that's I just wanted to debunk that part of it. Secondly, the voice note went on to speak about numbers, talking about COVID numbers. And those who know me and what I do know that I am not privy to COVID numbers earlier than anybody else. I do not sit on the committee. I do not have any information from the committee. I get most of the information from the dashboard like everybody else do, or if commissioner provides me with information that we need to go to media with, that's when I become, that's when I know of these information. So I cannot speak to numbers. As it relates to panic, and I'm referring to the contents of it, I do not speak for government. I do not know what happens in government. I have no contact, no affiliation with any government entity in terms of speaking to government readiness, preparedness. What I can tell you, that for the last year and almost 2 years doing what I'm doing now, I admire the efforts of the Ministry of Health and what they have been doing to ensure that Grenada remains safe. In fact, only recently I was talking about our low numbers and how much the Ministry of Health, nurses and doctors and everybody else who is in the forefront of this fight has done to keep Grenada safe. And I don't think any Grenadian could deny that fact. Now, if we accept that as factual, then you cannot accept the fact that government is in panic. Because I don't see the panic from where I sit. From law enforcement, we do what we need to do. Government do what they need to do. Cabinet, it does what it needs to do. And there has been a smooth transition in managing, or a smooth process, if I will, in managing the crisis by the time I have been here doing what I am doing. So this is what I want to say. This is the third program I'm appearing on this morning, trying to debunk that video.
You're busy. Half your day is already gone, right?
Well, that is how my day usually starts.
Right.
All in the morning and sometimes around late in the night. I don't do the 8 to 4 as everybody else do. I work when there is work to be done.
Right. Superintendent Cohen, I mean, you're a human being before you are Superintendent Cohen. How do you feel? How do you feel about this? Seriously, how does Vanny Cohen feel? 2 things. Couple months ago, one of our letterhead in the office were tampered with, and the contents of the letterhead was removed, and there was new information put onto the letterhead and was circulated. I started asking myself back then, am I being a target of some person or persons? But I'm not daunted. When I'm not guilty of something, I can, and that's why I can face the press this morning, take any questions from you or anybody else. So I am not usually daunted by those attempts to smear me, those attempts. I mean, I've seen a lot on social media about me during the crisis. People have I focus on what needs to be done. So I am not thin-skinned to the point where I will tell you, Brenda, that that it affects me that way. Obviously, my integrity is called into question, and that concerns me a little bit. But I am not disturbed by that. I understand the society in which we live. I know what people can do. I have been seeded for the last almost 2 years. I have been here. I've seen some things about me appear on social media that I did not even know of myself. So I am not daunted by that, and I want to let the public know. While I'm not happy about it, I'm focused on getting the job done. Senator Diali?
Yes, Superintendent, from the time I heard that voicemail, I know that wasn't the character of the person that I knew, and I know you. So I wasn't, I only listened to it, and then I didn't even forward it, I just deleted it. So it was one of those things that I thought I wasn't occupying my brain cells on at all, but I understood the connotations and the politics behind it and so on. I want to just digress a little and ask you a question outside of that and ask, I know there's a concern now where we have community spread that buses and traveling on buses, and I know that we have laws in place that people must wear their masks when traveling on buses. Are we going to see a heightened look at buses and people traveling on buses by the RGPF in order to protect what happens in that particular confined space?
You definitely will. Only Saturday, we've had a meeting to discuss our approach, our operational posturing as to how we're going to enforce that aspect of the regulation, having regard to the fact that we've seen increased numbers. In the past, we have been very lenient. very tolerant. But as the Ministry of Health has indicated that we have an increased spread, we have to be a little bit more forceful. I don't want to use the word draconian here, but we'll have to be a bit more forceful in the way we approach the regulation. It cannot be business as usual. Saturday and Sunday, we have allowed for some leeway and give some leniency, having regard to the fact that the Prime Minister only made the announcement on Friday. And so Saturday and Sunday, we had to, allow some things to happen. But starting today, we expect persons to apply for the relevant permission. We expect law enforcement to be on the ground, ensuring that mask is worn by everyone in public, that people who do not have the authority to travel within the curfew period do not travel, and if they do, there will be consequences for those actions. So yes, there are going to be a heightened police presence and police operations giving enforcement, giving teeth to the amendment to the regulation.
I welcome that, Superintendent, because especially for the public and public moving about on the buses, I think that is an area that we certainly need to pay a little more attention to. So yes, I think that is a welcome move by the RGPF.
Superintendent, morning again. Look, in the conversation we heard about how this may have affected you personally, but I don't see this as a prank. It's not funny. In fact, I see it as criminal in terms of the intent. Is the Royal Grenada Police Force going to investigate this further? What is going forward on this matter? Can happen again in a worse situation?
You can definitely expect an investigation, because we need to get to the source of this. We need to know where this is coming from. And as I indicated, this is not the first time there has been that attempt. And so I think once and for all, we need to find out who is behind all of this and what is happening here, and what is the purpose and intent of those who intend to smear, because that's what I think it is.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. Well, Superintendent Curran, I know it's a difficult task what you continue to do. The RGPF, 20 long months of taking us through. I think last night on social media, I pointed out in somebody's post that we have asked you to become contact tracers, behavioral therapists, all sorts of things we have called on the RGPF for. And we would like to thank you for all you do. You personally, the Commissioner, and the rest of the team, and every police officer, every rural constable, every traffic warden, every fireman, and all the other volunteers who support the RGPF in its efforts. We outnumber you, and your task is Herculean. So we'd like to thank you for that. And I wish you the best. I wish you stay safe. Thanks for all you do, and continue to guide us through this process. And thanks for coming on this morning.
Thank you very much, Brenda. I do appreciate it. And I can't say how much the leadership of the force has given strategic direction and guidance to what happens on the ground. So I'm high in praise for my high command.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you so much. Continue to have a good day. It's going to be a good day.
Thank you, my dear. Thank you.
Have a good one. All right. Bye-bye. We take a quick break. When we come back, we bring in our final guest panelist this morning, President of the Senate, Chester Humphrey. We'll be right back.
Get vax. It's your best shot. Hello.
A message from the Ministry of Health.
Tourism connects us all.
reflect.
Welcome back
the
to
light.
Perspectives. Thank you for
Let me
staying
take
with
the light
us.
off here and
Lots of
see.
folks are staying with us this morning. We thank you very much for that, for those very important discussions we are having. Mr. Campbell, there's a lot.
Yeah, it's a lot. But you know, Brenda, one of the things I saw here, and I just want to read it actually.
Sure.
Let me see if I can get it quickly.
You've been trying to get that in for a while.
Yeah, and you know what it says? This is an article in one of the local newspaper. Grenadians disobeyed the law and celebrated Carnival on August 9th and 10th, 2021. Their defiance shows that people have power. They can defeat the system that governs them when they are united under one banner.
Oh my goodness.
I mean, you know, and it concludes by saying, Jab is we ting and Jab would always win.
Can we move on?
You know.
Yes, that's where we are. That's
Really?
where we are. That's where we are. That's where we are. That's where we are. It is now my distinct pleasure to introduce to the Perspective guest panel for the second time. I think this is a second visit with us, the President of the Senate and lifelong trade unionist, Senator Chester Humphrey. Good morning, Senator Humphrey.
Good morning, Ms. Batiste and your other panelists.
Morning, Senator.
Mr. Campbell and Senator Diari.
All right. It's a pleasure to have
Good
you.
President.
It's a pleasure to have you here with us this morning. I take it from your background that you are in the People's House.
Yes, because I was specifically told by a technician that I should try to find a quiet place.
Thank you.
And,
Thank you. Thank you for your compliance.
I have a parrot who at this time of the day normally does a lot of talking, so I had to rush up here. All right, I had to rush up here, and then I am looking after a dog for my uncle who has traveled, and he's not used to the environment and the community, and he tends to bark quite a bit. So
I see.
I had to find a quiet place to do this.
Thank you so much for complying with our audio quality requirements, Senator Humphrey. We really appreciate that.
Well, I'm a compliant person, you know, and that's why I didn't play that.
I hope the parrot doesn't have a name.
Frankie.
Oh, Frankie. All right.
Yes.
Right. So, Senator Humphrey, you have been in the news all week. I was wondering what happened. I thought you got married again or something, because you've been everywhere. Your face has been plastered, your voice and everything, you know, airing your thoughts on things that have happened. But before we get to that, though, I'm sure you heard the Minister for Health this morning. I know you also sit on the COVID-19 committee, so you are in a unique place in terms of the national perspective on the pandemic. So can you share some of that with us this morning?
Well, I don't know what you want me to share. The committee on which I sit is an advisory committee to cabinet. So I'm
now that we are in this precarious place, you know, what are how do you feel about all of this?
So no, I was just saying I'm not at liberty to talk or speak on any advice which may have been given to the cabinet, but I certainly have what I would consider an in-depth view of the crisis that we are facing. And the minister is correct. In fact, in the last sitting of Parliament, I rallied to the defense of the minister and repeated his assertion, which is absolutely correct, and it was not scaremongering that people will die. And when you talk about defiance and that sort of thing, Grenada is not unique. Guadeloupe, which has now found itself in the throes of a grave situation, this was the state of play in Guadeloupe a few weeks ago. I don't know if you can see it.
Yeah, we've seen parts of it.
Yeah, parts of it, yeah.
And this is a march.
Yeah, we've seen that.
This is a march. Now, following that march, there is now another situation, and that is the following situation here.
On the French Caribbean island of Guadeloupe, the COVID-19 crisis has gotten so bad that morgues can't keep up. To preserve bodies, backup refrigerated containers have been installed in the parking lot, but they will soon be full.
And then there's also the situation in Bahamas. So when one sits where I sit, and you have an opportunity to survey the landscape and to look at the trajectory of where things are going, and I don't know if you may know it, but I have somewhat of a medical background. In fact, I was a pre-med student when I left Grenada. It was medicine I wanted to do. 2 of my kids are medical doctors, and I live in a family of medical people. I have a first cousin who is a cardiologist. My sister was a senior nurse for many years in the UK. And also my aunt was a trauma nurse. So I have this medical background. So I have a very deep appreciation of, first of all, the nature of this disease, what it is capable of doing, how it is transmitted, and the necessary measures that must be put in place in order to contain it. Sadly enough, politics has intervened. And I know it may make you sad, but it's the reality. There are persons within our community who are hoping. They have not expressed that hope openly, but it is their view that the pandemic can trigger a change in government, and they can then occupy the seats of office. And so they are both behind the scenes and quite openly urging people, knowing fully well that we're in a state of a pandemic, and what is happening in neighboring countries can very easily happen to us, given the fact that the virus has mutated, and it has mutated to become a more virulent strain. We're seeing now what is happening in the United States, notwithstanding the fact that it has a high level of vaccinations. Likewise, in the UK, we see what's happening there, and that is simply because the virus has mutated, and it is more infectious, and we are going to suffer from that. Trinidad has been running, what, 7, 8, 9, 10 deaths a day, when they did exceedingly well in the first phase of this pandemic, when it reached the Caribbean, the latter part of March, going all down to April, May, June, July, August. The Caribbean did very, very well. In fact, we made a VDC report in which we were complimented that in terms of the measures we took and our low rate of infection and death, we had outpaced the United Kingdom and other developed countries of the world. But my grandmother has had a saying, and I believe in the wisdom of the old sages: what miss you in past you? And we are we've passed the miss you stage, right? What miss you? But we now enter the stage where it's not going to pass you. And I'm fearful that we are going to be in a very unhappy place.
Senator, I want to ask your thoughts on this. I have said very openly that I think that government should have mandated vaccinations for our primary health people, our security forces, customs, immigration. I didn't extend it to the whole public service, but I believe these particular positions are so much on the front line that I thought that it was necessary for us to have mandation at that level. As we have heard legally and from a legal perspective that you can, once it's reasonable and we understand the risk that those positions pose to the individuals. What are your sentiments and your thoughts on that?
Well, first and foremost, Chris, we have to understand what we are facing. And what we are facing is quite grave. And I described that succinctly on the last program that I was on, but I know time is against me on this program here. But what we are facing is the following. Government has lost 50% of its revenue. Many businesses have gone out of business, and those who have not are having grave fiscal challenges. St. George's University, that contributes what, 20, 22, 23, or 25% of our GDP, or probably more, has a whole orbit of economic activity around it. The banks have financed a large undertaking of real estate development, properties that live off the oxygen provided by St. George's University. And that's run into billions of dollars that our banks are holding. For more than a year, because St. George's University suspended face-to-face learning and moved off the island, and so too were the students. Many of these properties have not been able to service their debt, presenting a grave risk to the economy. Antigua is facing also challenging difficulties, and therefore we could have a situation where the economic situation gets so grave that the OECS will have to devalue its currency. And if our currency reaches a devaluation stage, anything near to what is happening, where Jamaica, the Jamaica dollar is, or the Guyanese dollar, in which you have to find in some cases $40-something to one and $80-something to one. Could you imagine? I mean, well, Chris, you manage a very successful business, so you know what I'm talking about. LIAT, since its founding in 1973-74, has gone to the grave several times. It never died, never went into the grave. It reached very close. You know what has sent LIAT to the grave? COVID. That is 680-something workers now that are out of work. Not only are they out of work, they have together over 200,000 years of service and have not received a single cent in compensation. One of LIAT's best pilots, a boyhood friend of mine, Captain Blackburn, he won a major case against LIAT in a case of wrongful termination. The matter went all the way up to the Privy Council, and the Privy Council ruled in his favor, right? And after giving all of his life service to LIAT, he's expecting to collect decent compensation for the breach of his right. He has the judgment issued by the Privy Council. He can't enforce it because LIAT has gone belly up. It's bankrupt. It has little or no assets that a receiver could dispose of and compensate the workers. And while whatever remains of LIAT is still ticking along, I think we have 2 flights a week or whatever it is. There are workers who are working with LIAT who never stopped working, although everybody else went home.
No pay. Because
there were certain component parts of LIAT that kept going, like the manager and so on, Brother Patrick, and so who are working. They have not been paid in some cases for 7 months and 8 months, 9 months, 10 months. They're going to work. They might get 2 weeks pay today, 3 months from now, they get another 2 weeks. And that is the situation. So that is what we face, right? And this situation, if we have a breakout, anything of the scale of what I just showed you in Guadeloupe, and look, we will be in a terrible place. Yes, we will be in a terrible place. So, to come back to your question of mandatory vaccines, Grenada, as all Caribbean countries who inherited the British socialized medical system coming down from colonial times, have had mandatory vaccines on their books. Mandatory inoculation is in all laws. It's practiced. Not a single infant can attend a school, whether it's a private school or a public school or a combined school, without having their inoculation card presented on entry at the school. Mandatory vaccine does not mean that the Minister of Health, together with Mr. Vanny Cohen, will be going around holding down people in the market square and giving them a vaccination. It doesn't mean that. What mandatory vaccination means is the law provides for you to be vaccinated, and you can refuse to take a vaccine. Nobody can administer medicine to you. So you can refuse to take it. But the consequential effect of refusing to take it is that you will be denied access to certain things. In the case of the mandatory vaccines for youngsters and infants, if you are not vaccinated, you are not allowed to attend school. Similarly, I agree with you, and it's my view, and I'm not speaking for government here. Let me be absolutely clear on this. This is the view of Chester Humphrey. This is not the view of the government of Grenada, and I'm not speaking in any capacity connected either to my position as president of the Senate or to any other position, right? This is my personal John Doe citizen view. I support mandatory vaccine, targeted. I do not believe that 2 fishermen going out to catch snapper must be mandated to take the vaccine if they don't want to take it. But could you imagine what will happen if there's, and remember, if I'm in a workplace and I test positive, in other words, I was asymptomatic, spreading this virus, I didn't know, nobody else didn't know because I didn't have symptoms. But then I began to realize that I have symptoms as my viral load starts developing more and increasing, and my body immune system is kicking in to try to fight this virus. And I'm having cough and fever, lose my taste, right? I am required to isolate, but not only me, all those who I work with. So assuming a dozen prison officers come down with this virus, who's running the prison? Imagine a similar thing happens in the police force. Who is maintaining the curfew? Who is managing traffic? And more fearful, if it breaks out in the hospital.
That's correct.
If it breaks out in the hospital, I can assure you that there are people who have made it clear, for whatever reasons, whether it's conspiracy theory, whether it's superstition, whatever reasons, they are not taking the vaccine. You think if there's a breakout in the hospital, either introduced by a patient or an unvaccinated worker, and people are dying and lining up in the corridor, and there's no room, and people have to stay in cars with the air condition on outside to help patients. You see those people who have not taken the vaccine, you think they're coming to work?
That is part of the challenge.
So the question would be, what do you do? So the hospital, and that's, remember, we're dealing just with COVID patients. We're not dealing with patients who may have a heart attack, who may have appendicitis during this period. Where do they go? And I mean, our services are small. There's no need to be descriptive of the quality or state of the service, right? So we are facing a grave situation.
Yeah.
And it's against that background. My position is that there ought to be targeted mandatory vaccine, which we should have introduced long before where we are now. Because you're introducing it on the eve of a crisis that you don't know what the scope of this infection in the community is. Later this week, we'll begin to learn what it is. And by next week, the latter part of next week, we will get a better picture of the extent of this infection and how deep there is community spread, what sections of the population, and I can guarantee you, based on the medical science, that by late next week, there are going to be several people in the hospital. Once hospitalization starts, because at this phase in the circulation of the disease, the people who are spreading it are young people. By and large, they are robust enough. Already we have 3 people who have entered the hospital at different stages because of this disease, right? Right? So the people who are spreading it now and so on are the young people. They're robust. And we know what the disease does and how it does it. Yes? But young people live in homes. Young people visit village shops. Young people, when they go home, they go to their parents and their parents then go to the church, or they go to the market, or they go to the supermarket. There is some indication already that there may be some infection in a particular, well, maybe if the minister didn't say it, I shouldn't. But we are not in a good place. Yeah. So the long and short is, I support mandatory vaccine, targeted. And I must express my view of disappointment with my trade union fraternity, because I think the focus is on the wrong component of this issue.
Right.
Senator, sorry.
Go ahead, Byron.
Senator, over the past days, last week, you were on record being highly critical of GBN in particular, but media personnel in general, regarding their responsibility in the present crisis in particular to report for professional reporting. But they also pointing out their responsibility also to report the facts on what they see. I mean, what was the line here? Why were you so highly critical? What was wrong with their approach to broadcasting in this instance, Senator?
Simply because there are international normatives and standards. I am certain on none of the internationally recognized media houses, whether they be, and I'm not dealing with an ideological issue now, I'm just dealing with broad common standards, whether it be BBC, CNN, NCB, Radio Trinidad, Radio Barbados, Radio Jamaica. I am certain that on none of these stations, if a cameraman passes by and sees two people in the bush somewhere in Tantine having sex, I am certain they won't broadcast that live. I am certain. I have seen many times while looking at international news, people use foul language. They would say that foul language is used, but they mute it, because there are certain standards. Remember that when you are broadcasting into the homes with children, etc., etc. Grenada, for whatever it's worth, is a religious community. We have certain socially accepted normatives and so on. On our law books, it's against the law to curse a bad word. And you know what the bad words are, right? So it's against the law. That's point number one. Point number two, you cannot be streaming. And that is where my anger riled up. You cannot be streaming bad words sung by people. Yes, you are covering the activity. This is what is happening. But you ought to mute it. You cannot be streaming bad words. And I'm telling you, the worst two combination of bad words. And those combination of bad words were hurled at the Prime Minister. And I'm not dealing with the personality, no. I don't care whether that Prime Minister was Mr. Brizan, Mr. Tillman Thomas. I don't care who it was, right? Here you had a combination of bad words aimed at the Prime Minister, sitting Prime Minister in the country, and the Prime Minister's mother. Sung by repeated by little 8-year and 9-year-olds who found themselves drawn into a jab band. Tell me, ladies and gentlemen, or to the listening public, how could that be right? How could that be acceptable? First of all, it's a breach of the law, because they don't have parliamentary privilege. I could say anything in Parliament, and I'm not sued. I'm not in breach of the law. I may be in breach of parliamentary rules, so that's a different issue. But if you broadcast a libel that I made or a slander, you are liable. So when Mrs. Campbell attempted to divorce the GBN Facebook page, and to have the person who was streaming this set of obscenities aimed at the Prime Minister and his mother, right? And to say that all we're doing is broadcasting, it tells me how deeply deteriorated we have been. And this station, which once held the premier position in our country, has lost it. Because any basic journalist knows that you are responsible. A station is responsible for its content. And that is why stations are sued up and down this country. And I mean, I am highly annoyed because up to date, no action has been taken against that station. So when I entered the Beyond the Headline program, I said to Mrs. Campbell, you know, if I was chairman of the Broadcast Authority, I will pull your license, you know, and let's go in court and fight it. I will pull your license for a serious breach in regulatory standards, because I'm certain that there must be some regulation which prevents, you mean a radio station could broadcast porn? A television station could just broadcast porn now? Is that what you're saying? So the chairman of the regulatory authority is not doing the chairman's job. I would pull the license and force the owners of the company to engage Ms. Campbell and for her to explain her dereliction of duty. And I make no bones about that. I said so openly. To get back at me, Mrs. Campbell, the day after, not the next day, the day after the next day, brings high up in the news and brings the news headline, Humphrey threatens, I can't remember exactly what it is, but contextually that is what it meant. So I'd rather have the opportunity to explain, because I make absolutely no apologies for that. And I repeat, had I been the chairman, I would pull GBN's license and let us have a national conversation and a national fight about it.
Talking about national conversations about broadcasting and standards and so on, though, there also seemed to be some anxiety from the government end about what was broadcast by whom and how it impacted, how it pushed or pulled, or the word used. I'm coming to that. I'm coming to that. No, I'm just want to interject, and I want your answer on it, is that whether or not, and in hindsight, maybe, Senator Humphrey, there should have been, maybe there ought to have been, let me say ought to have been, some engagement of media houses, because we are in a pandemic. We saw where this was heading. It's a public health issue. And even if there was going to be a case where, all right, events were happening, but some conversation as to what's aired and what's not aired. There was wall-to-wall coverage of certain activities as if it was normal times. All right. And I think there needs to be some ownership for that. But having said that, though, right, because that did not happen, because there was no discussion to say, listen, it's a blackout on these activities. We're not going to bring wall-to-wall coverage of Juve anywhere. But on the Monday, what started to happen across the island, that's the business that the GBN is in. They're a news entity. So that was a noteworthy event happening, and it had to be covered. I think the issue is the wall-to-wall coverage, the non-muting of the obscene and violent language. And if, looking at it now, that we in a general sense in Grenada have some broadcast standards, because not GBN alone, you know, driving in the vehicle, I mean, DJ on the station saying, hey, where the jab meeting? Where we meeting? It could be in jest. It could be in jest. But what it does is incite. So those standards are necessary as well.
Well, again, it may appear that I'm picking on the GBN.
Not
And
at all.
they may be
Probably the only station you listen and look at.
Well, I'm about to explain that because let me be very frank with you. I have long stopped listening to radio. I listen only to the news. Right? So my radio will come on here in my office or wherever I am on news time. And sometimes not to miss the news, I will come on a little bit earlier than when the news is due. And if I'm getting ready, the news may become gone and the radio is still playing. But what I can tell you as a fact, that GBN purposefully promoted Carnival. Most of its programming in the mornings, in the weeks leading up to Carnival, was encouraging a Carnival atmosphere. Right? As I said, I am annoyed by bad language. And I'm annoyed by people who speak and not informed. So I don't listen to most of the other stations because what they call these DJs and so on, I'm not putting myself on a pedestal. But quite frankly, I can't bring myself to listen to those things. You know, people who are uninformed, talking nonsense, bad language. There's a generational gap I'm experiencing, and I believe every generation goes through that. So I understand that is generational alienation.
Yeah.
So there's some genres of music I don't understand. I don't understand the jukshi and winchi, and I don't understand that kind of thing. And I don't understand this grinding business. I don't understand this Jamaican dancehall. I don't listen to that. That antagonizes me. So I don't listen to those stations. To me, they don't exist. In fact, I've spoken to several friends of mine and said, well, you know, if I had money, we should have put together a nice station that plays really good music. You know what I'm saying? And that carries news and that keeps a certain standard. You know, because what we have, and I'm sorry, look, if I sung, I'm not arrogant about it, but a lot of it is trash. Just straight up forward trash. So so maybe I'm being unfair to GBN, and that might be so, but it is GBN I listen to because I grew up. Remember, GBN has a history. It emerged from WIBS, the Windward Island Broadcasting Station, and had people like Leslie Sion. And how I grew up liking a certain kind of music is the WIBS time called Quiet Time, where people like Eva Fitzgerald and others were played, and my father and my uncle. So Walter St. John is a connoisseur of good music. So I grew up imbibed with good music. Old Papa St. John.
So GBN helps.
Was a classic.
GBN helps culture your taste. Okay.
Exactly. So when it has deteriorated to people in the morning who are strangers to English language, right, and who makes no effort to improve themselves, and who, when they are hosts, don't properly prepare themselves for the program, and incapable of interviewing people. I mean, Brenda, I am not blowing your trumpet, not blowing air into your balloon, but I miss you. Because after Lou, you were the last line of hope. After you are gone, I went with you.
But Senator, you can't call dance hall and these other type of music trash.
I am
just trash.
No, listen to me. Look.
Senator, I like dance hall real bad.
Let me say something.
A dance hall girl.
I'm saying this is my view.
Okay.
You have asked me my view.
Yeah.
And I'm giving you my view.
All right.
Simple. And I'm explaining why it is I'm so deeply upset with what GBN has become.
Yeah, but you know, as you speak of the standard of the individual station, and you know, GBN in many respects is still the national station. We have to own that hands down.
Sadly so.
Yeah, but we need to have national standards as well. There needs to be policy that flows from a place where there needed to be these discussions that we're in a pandemic. We preempt that there will be these activities. And media houses, here's where we need your help, right? So that should have happened before. But by Monday morning, what was happening across the island was noteworthy enough that GBN carried it as news. The wall-to-wall coverage, there's a question mark there, but they had to carry it in some form or fashion.
Look, let me see. And this is not, remember, not only are we in a pandemic, but we're in a state of emergency.
Correct.
We're in a state of emergency, right? There are times during when we didn't have a pandemic and Carnival was being broadcast and GBN didn't have the rights for whatever broadcast there was, and there are other television stations who don't have the rights, they bring snippets of the Carnival, right? Although in my mind, in the case of GBN, they choose some of the most lewdest scenes to bring. You see, look, I am not preaching as if I'm a saint. You know, let's get that straight. But again, I go to the wisdom of the old people. And my grandmother who grew me up, she had this regular saying, there's a time and a place for everything.
Yeah.
Yes, but let's stick to the pandemic and come back to the question at hand, because before
we go to time and place, though, you really just hit something with me there. Time and place. So here we are at a time and place where we are seeing that the changes in human behavior, the deterioration of the social fabric across the span of our communities is being reflected everywhere, Senator Humphrey. Wouldn't you agree?
I agree. And part of the challenge is that too few people are speaking up. Our traditional guardians of our morality and so on, and here I refer to the churches, have sort of toned down the traditional role. I'm not hearing enough voices. Maybe I don't go to the place where these voices are speaking. And I would readily admit that. But I know long ago we had censor boards. I know long ago when certain things happen in society, you could hear statements from the churches and the what have you not, etc., etc., etc. I no longer hear that. And what has happened is that social media has given a wide scope to the uneducated and the uninformed, and to the malicious and unrestrained voice. So information no longer goes through the traditional filter. It's no longer effectual, right? In the old days, to get information, it came from the BBC, the Center of Control, Colonial Power, and so on, and it came down through the news wire, whether it's AP, Agency France Press, Voice of America, it was Control, the newspapers presented it and so on, and then you read your newspaper, whether it was the West Indian, the Trinidad Guardian, or whatever have you, and so on. Now today, news is no longer circulated that way. News is now lateral. I create my own news.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, people send me videos of people who they say are on social media. And the degree of stupidity that has a platform to speak is amazing, totally amazing. So yes, we've lived in changed times. I admit that, but then again, the state has a certain responsibility, and I could understand the wariness of the state to tread in any area that people perceive that you are trampling on their rights and their freedoms and so on. Right. I just showed you what is happening here. You have the anti-vaxxers. Hundreds now are dying in Guadeloupe. They don't even have morgues to put them in. Yet 2 weeks ago, people were marching against being vaccinated. And you have somewhat of a degree of that here, right? A couple guys make up a jab jab chant. Now, a lot of the people who are repeating the chant sometimes are not even conscious of the implications of what they're saying. They're just repeating it. I mean, I heard little children singing the two combination obscene words.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And the adults all around them are singing it.
Right.
Right?
So if those obscenities stream onto the street, Senator Humphrey, it means that it's also happening at home. And therein lies a greater part of our problem. What's happening at home? What's happening in the community? What's happening everywhere?
That's also true, because some time ago, a video was streamed of a 7-year-old in a bacchanal in a yard,
Yep.
hurling obscenities at a senior person.
Correct.
And when the person say, "Where's your mother? I hope your mother is in the house." The mother came out and say, and start obscenities too. So yes, we have those, but that has not yet become the normative.
Yeah.
Because I'm certain those kids who were using that combination of obscene there, I am certain most of them would not be saying that in their home. Yeah. I mean, this is a Grenada I know. Yes, there is some deterioration, but it is not, for some of us it would shock us, but I don't think it is as bad. What has happened there is people who are bent to political mischief, people who have political objectives, see some tunes. Because I was a jab player. I mean, I played jab even while I was a member of parliament. I played jab. I was in the forefront of when Gary said no jab. I mean, I played jab. I am not opposed to jab, right? And I know how these things work. So it takes 2 or 3 individuals to see the song and plant the song. And then the song is taken up as a chant by the whole band.
Yeah. Before we let you leave, Senator, we are very, 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 on pins and needles, so to speak, this week. And, things probably would get a little more dicey before it gets better. What would you want to leave with the Grenadian populace?
Well, I want to make an appeal to my trade union colleagues. Forget me. Whether I am disowned or not, forget me. I'm not the issue here. At nearing 70 years of age, that don't really matter me. I'm appealing to you to get on it and wage a vigorous campaign amongst your members to get vaccinated. As I said to you before, I think the focus is misplaced because people are going to die, and many of those who are going to die are going to be workers. And unfortunately, many of them will die either at middle age or nearing retirement, and will be leaving children behind who still need them. Places will have to be closed, all right? Because if this thing gets off hand and we have a run on the hospital and deaths, in as much as we don't want to close the economy, Jamaica is now under full lockdown. St. Lucia is contemplating. New Zealand, where there was an outbreak with one 54-year-old man, closed it. We will have to do it. Otherwise, the situation becomes totally uncontrollable, and you wouldn't like it. We will end up the morning after a nuclear war. This is what will happen. So at some stage, and this is why I'm appealing to the trade union, forget it, this Chester Humphrey talking. Get down there in the workplace. All of the trade union leaders. I walked through the ministry last week, and there were very few workers there with masks on. In an air-conditioned building with closed windows where the air is circulating. Right? This is not a government thing. You may have difficulties with your employer. You may have an industrial dispute with your employer. He didn't pay you strike pay. Your pension thing unsettled. Yes, I understand that. Carry on your struggle as best as you can. But this is not a struggle against the government. So go out there, visit every workplace, urging workers, first of all, to get vaccinated, because that is what will save lives. I cannot understand how a trade union will lead workers for weeks in the streets for an increase in pay, but wouldn't lead them in the streets to save their lives. I just don't understand it. It's incomprehensible. And as I said before, if I was still in the labor movement, I will be out there with the army and nurses. I will come to every workplace. I'll be done by Chris. I will have my vaccination crew with me, urging the workers, jettison this superstition and nonsense that's been spoken about. Get your vaccine. And I will agree with employers. If you're not vaccinated, you can't come to work. And that's my position. Again, let me repeat. I am not speaking for the government of Grenada. I am not speaking for Parliament. This is Chester Humphrey Joe Blow. Okay? Chester Humphrey Joe Blow. St. George's University has gotten it right. Right? And we need to move in that direction. Targeted compulsory vaccination as currently exists. And the target for compulsory vaccination, which is in the Education Act and other acts, are infants and young people. You can't come to school unless you take your childhood vaccines. Right? And the same thing must be done. The reason why I don't have polio, you don't have polio, Chris. And my good friend Ray Roberts will tell you how unfortunate it was that he didn't get the polio vaccine because he suffered from it. And Ray is at the forefront. I hope you don't mind me saying so, but Ray is at the forefront.
He is.
Feeling that, calling on people to be vaccinated.
He is.
But I mean, all the whole world and the millions of us who have taken this vaccine can be a world of millions of idiots. And those people who have died.
But the trade unions, the trade unions will have an uphill battle, Senator Humphrey, too, because of how people feel.
But what would be the uphill battle?
Their members.
Look, no, but you, look. Leadership requires certain things.
Right.
As I have said before, I am a leader. I have always been. I am not a panderer.
Ah.
A panderer is someone
That's the word.
who holds a leadership position but is not leading, is pandering. So they listen to where the chorus of the majority is and then they fix themselves accordingly. They either don't provide leadership and they go and duck, or they focus on the wrong thing. Because I cannot understand how you can tell me, and let me make it clear to all those trade unionists, a collective agreement as a contract in law can be vacated if a circumstance arises where the parties to the agreement could never have contemplated those conditions, and it creates a situation, especially where life is involved. And this is why every legal authority has said that the state, but it's in the Constitution here, I have it, the Grenada Constitution. I have 5 sections in the Grenada Constitution, where the rights have been prescribed on the basis of that it is necessary in the interest of public health. So this nonsense, and it is nonsense, that mandatory vaccine only for people who just joined the workforce. That's nonsense. You can impose it on people who are currently working. And it does not amount to a breach of your agreement, because there's nowhere in your agreement which says there should be no vaccine.
No.
So that is something the parties have never contemplated. And in the face of death, and in the face where scientifically there's an instrument to protect them, the employer will be failing. In other words, if I'm working in a workplace right now, and a worker falls sick and be infected by another worker, I will take that employer to court. My advice, if a worker came to me and said, look, I am working in company X, and several people, they get a breakout, and I catch it, right?
Yeah, because
you could take that employer to court for failure to provide a secure environment because he is under a statutory duty and obligation so to do.
The employer has a duty of care to all this. Yeah,
so I'm saying, and I'm speaking loud and clear.
Yeah.
I'm speaking both to the trade union leaders and to the membership. Well, I mean, I know the trade union leaders hate me. So, but it matters me not. I'm speaking to the membership. What you are being told is utter nonsense.
Hate is a strong word. I don't think it's hate. They may just have disagreements.
But what you are being told, what you are being told that the employer cannot impose this condition on you is straight nonsense.
Right.
And if you don't believe me, those of you who are standing up outside St. George's University, take a lawyer, maybe Kajintan Hood or whoever, go to the court and file an action against St. George's University and see to succeed.
Yep.
Thank you so much, Senator Humphrey. Before I leave you though, that picture on the wall behind you, that is you.
Well, yes, one of my old colonial trappings.
Yeah.
Colonial trappings and Chester Humphrey in the same sentence?
Yes, because you ought not to confuse the actor with the act.
Ah.
And I leave that for you to condemn. I'm certain you see movies where fellas, in the Ten Commandments, you see a fella playing Christ. You don't believe that is Christ, do you?
No comment.
Well said, Senator. Well said. Well said.
Good.
Senator Humphrey, thank you so very much. Thank you for staying with us this morning, coming to us from the People's House, and of course with your wit, your humor, your seriousness, and of course, your stance on issues. We really appreciate it. It's always elucidating talking with you. Thank you so very much. Stay safe, you and your family, and all the staff at the Parliament.
Same to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very, very much.
I am much obliged. Have a good day.
And you, sir. And you. Senator Ali, you're back?
Yes, I am back.
Yes, what a program. Wow.
I still work.
I know, all of us.
What a morning.
What a morning. It's been, old people call that a long pants morning, but all very pertinent. Speaking with the Minister for Health, we appreciate him for coming in, our Superintendent Vanny Cohen, and that discussion there with President of the Senate, Senator Chester Humphrey. Gentlemen?
Yeah, what a morning. Look, we have to take the present situation seriously.
Yeah.
I think a lot of information went out there, a lot of discussion. I think it's important to, what we're saying essentially is do what is right. Your protocols, your face masks, your hand sanitization, your vaccination, please consider it if, it's going to save lives. We're not in a good place, and as we note, the next coming days, week will tell us exactly where we are.
Pins and needles. Yeah. Senator Ali?
Yes, but I want to leave on this sticker message. I think we always criticize our leaders for not showing leadership. We have always been saying that it's something that's lacking in our society, and our leaders don't provide the necessary leadership. I don't know if I am confused or not, but in this particular COVID crisis, I cannot see from where I sit that our leaders have not done a good job, whether it be political, whether it be the Minister of Health, whether it be our acting CMO, whether it be the police force. People in leadership positions, I thought, and I believe at this juncture of where we are in COVID, have managed our situation very well. We have all said that we're paying for our success in managing COVID in the early stage, and now people just believe that everything is a hoax. And when I look at this and we talk about our leaders and they're not doing what they're supposed to do, and then we do what we do in COVID, manage this thing very well until we get to a point where our success is working against us, then I wonder what it is we really are saying and what we are doing when it comes to our leaders. A lot of us, private sector, public sector, anyway, you've heard people talking about the need, the necessity for us to get on board, get vaccinated or not, and then live by the consequences. Well, we seem to be living by the consequences now. As Minister Steele indicated to us, the situation is going to get a lot worse before it gets better. And I really hope, as this situation deteriorates, that our people listen to ones and those of us who have information in authority, and given the information as best as they have it, to let them change the way in which they do certain things and at least obey some of the protocols to keep themselves, their families, and the nation safe as we go forward.
Thank you so much, Senator Ali. Thank you so much, Mr. Campbell. As we leave you this morning, we'd like to thank everyone for joining us. It was quite a record program this morning, but it came to you as a public service, national service, if you will, that the crew went on and everyone here extended so you can get the information from the Minister for Health. Of course, Superintendent Vanny Cohen was here with us as that audio made its rounds and created much panic across Grenada last evening. And of course, Senator Chester Humphrey was here with us as well. We'd just like to encourage everyone just to be safe. Commissioner Edwin Martin says it best. You do not know what you do not know. And I would say none of us are safe until all of us are safe. So please, social distance, wear your mask, physical distance, that is, don't social distance. Still check up on people, yeah? So physical distance, wear your mask, sanitize. I encourage those of you who are inclined and want to do so, please go on out and get vaccinated. All right, let's take care of each other. This week is a week where if you don't have to move, sit still. And please, as the day goes by, the police, they're going to have a press conference, and we should be hearing additional information from the Ministry of Health as well. So stay tuned for those, and please take your information from only official sources. Yeah. For all of us here, Kirk Oliver, who took care of us on camera this morning, Blondell George, who gave us direction, Nazim Benjamin for your professional streaming services, our executive producer, Richie Oliver. I am Brenda Batiste. This has been another edition of Perspectives. Until next time, everyone, please stay safe. Bye-bye.
Bye.